Like our content? It's funded by viewers like you. Please consider becoming a sustaining supporter of New Church Live today.
Good morning, everybody. The voice that you just heard is Chuck Blair, senior pastor here. I'm Curtis. I'm filling in today, but I'm going to try to do something at least 70% as good as what he would do if he was here. Today's service is called Breaking Free from Pharaoh. And I'm actually a little surprised that you're watching or that you came, because I would imagine your first reaction is, that's not a problem for me. I got a lot of problems in my life. There's a lot of stuff going on, but the Pharaoh thing, I got that figured out. I've had minimal impact on my life from Pharaoh, from an ancient Egyptian ruler, causing me headaches and things. Like if you had to talk about tax law, how to fill out the financial aid forms for your daughter's school, that I can get behind. But this Pharaoh stuff, what I hope to do is give you an idea that will stay in your head for the rest of your life in a good way, that you will always be able to look for, identify, or at least get a clearer picture of who's Pharaoh and what's he doing to me right now, and how do I break free of that? Because it can make all the difference in the world if you have a labeling structure, or you're just looking for the pattern that evolves. So this is actually the intent of the Word, of the revelation from God, I believe, is to equip us to find the kind of freedom that God wants us to have. So where we're going is the Promised Land. I think this is both, if you're thinking about the literal story of the children of Israel in Egypt, they're trying to escape from Pharaoh. Where are they going? They're going to the Promised Land. I mean, it's a long journey. They end up kind of taking the scenic route for 40 years in the wilderness, but they end up in the Promised Land. And so that's the destination. They have to keep that in their mind. So the Promised Land, if you look at where's God trying to lead you into, what's the only thing on God's mind? What is the project that is life? Is to get you to happiness. Sure, you can qualify it with it's a certain kind of happiness. It's deep and it's lasting and it's peaceful and it's good, like it's founded on good, sustainable things that make other people happy as well, although I'd argue there's only really lasting happiness in those things anyway. But that is where we're trying to get. That's also how you can know, oh yeah, I'm not quite there yet. Like I have some good days, but there's a lot of hard days too. There's somewhere that we are being called to go to. And I want to start to connect in your mind this story that maybe you've heard it. If you haven't, you'll learn it a little bit with us, of the children of Israel, captive in Egypt, being called out of there and led to the Promised Land and their struggles with Pharaoh. I want you to be able to connect that story to your life, to your regular everyday life, to the things that you think and feel in the midst of going about your 21st century existence. So let's start to connect the text to us here. This is from Exodus. And I love how you don't even really notice the way that the Bible is written. There's a personification of groups of people. Because here you have the whole of the children of Israel, which is, I don't know how many exactly, thousands of people, but they're all doing something together. And it's something that a single individual would do. They all do it. And I want you to see, like, you can see your own self in this story, because this is a human story. Then the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage. So this is the bondage of them being captive in the land of Egypt. And they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. So God heard their groaning. God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. I feel like there's so many fascinating aspects to that. First of all, hey, we need help. I don't know what a groan sounds like. It's something like that. Oh, What's the groan? I won't do it again, don't worry. That's a feeling you can resonate with, just like, I need help. But then also there's this curious, like they woke God up. Oh, God's somewhere, and he says, oh, right, they're down there because they're groaning. I mean, is that really how God is? Oh, it can't be. God is one of the founding principles of the concept of God is that God's omniscient. God knows. God doesn't have to remember anything. So why is it written this way? I think this is the remembering, the stirring in us. I mean, God is always sitting there, ready to take us to the promised land. This is when there's a part of us. Think about the children of Israel being the part of you that's like, there's something better than this. There's somewhere I can go. Like, I know there's more. And I know there's good things in life, and I want to surround myself with those. Can I get to there from here? So God's remembering the covenant. God's acknowledging them. There's a promise here that I'm going to lead you to the promised land. But initially, they're not in the promised land. They're in this state of captivity in Egypt. And the way I want you to look at that for yourself is as the spiritual captivity that we all, and maybe you don't, but most of the human race finds themselves in. Oh, this is a real picture of spiritual captivity. I would want to posit the idea, you don't have to agree with it, but that to a certain extent, you're trapped a little bit. Or you're not really in control of your own life as far as your own mind and feelings and things like that are. That maybe some aspects, but overall, there's some stuff that you wish you could not be having to do and that you have to do it. And there's stuff that you wish you could do and you can't. Discipline, focus, managing your emotions. I actually have an article that I pulled up that gets at this really well. And it's an example of one kind of captivity, but I want you to start to be able to think about, oh yeah, right, there is a lot of captivity in your own conscious experience. This is called the mental prisons we build for ourselves. Though we like to think of ourselves as free, many of us are confined to a mental prison we've built for ourselves. Our most vicious jailer is our unhealthy self-talk, our inner critic that savagely sabotages us with haunting doubts and harsh judgments. We are our own worst enemy. The inner critic is like a universally acknowledged idea. Not everybody has one that's turned up super loud. Some people have a really loud one. Isn't that funny? They're sitting in your mind with it. There's this somebody sitting over you like, that's not going to work. You're not going to be able to do that. This is another way that we can be trapped. We're a prisoner of our monkey mind, feeling unsettled or restless and easily distracted by thoughts that bounce around like agitated apes. Often we're dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, always neglecting the present moment. And you can think, oh, I can kind of do whatever I want in my mind until, have you ever tried to meditate? Or there's this thing where you say, I'm not going to think anything for 3 minutes. Can you do it? No. You can do it for a couple of seconds, and then you find yourself in a thought that you don't even really want to have. Also, when somebody says something to you at work or somewhere and it gets under your skin, can you stop thinking about it? Sometimes, but a lot of the time, I find myself sitting here ruminating on this thing this person said, and I can't turn it off, even if I want to go to sleep. He continues, most of our mental prisons are fictional stories our minds invent to prevent us from potential suffering. The sad secret, though, is that the suffering is wildly unlikely to occur outside our overactive imaginations. Our mental prisons are fear factories. So that's a description of certain kinds of what I call spiritual captivity. Places where there are unpleasant things in your own mind, destructive things in your own mind that are running the show even when you don't want them to. That may be where you are. There's a lot of other places you can be spiritually captive. Some people struggle with, they've got rage, or they've got addiction, or there's things that they wish they didn't do that they do. everything in between. All of that, I would say, falls under this state of spiritual captivity because it's not where you want to be. It's not where you want to be, and it's not the promised land, which the promised land, we'll get into a little more of the details of what it is, but it's not that happiness and the peace and the joy that is the intent of why God created us each as his children. So you can look at the biblical history that you see in this story and compare it to what's going on in your own mind. So just like in the biblical history, they're trapped. They got to make bricks. They got to build things. There are elements to this captivity. In your mind, that state plays out where there's a part of you that's trapped and is having to go through and do these things because, why? Well, because Pharaoh said so. Because whatever rules your mind says this is how it has to be. And sometimes we can think it's not really a captivity, but I would say that it is because it poses as like, oh, this is sort of a fair game, but it's not. I have a quote here from Peter Rhodes. Oh, he's not here today. Sometimes he comes to New Church Life. He's an author, spiritual teacher, really big influence on me and many other people. And he has a quote that I love, which is, "It is a divine impossibility to satisfy the human ego." So ego is a good term for it. It's just all the negative stuff that comes in. It's like in the story when Pharaoh says, you got to make twice as many bricks, and then without straw, and then it's done. You may run around saying, okay, well, yeah, I've got this ego in my mind, the thing that makes me worry about the future, the thing that makes me compare myself to other people, the thing that makes me unable to control my impulses, whatever it is you're dealing with. And you might think, well, it's there, but it's not that bad. I just got to do, it's this driving force. I got to do what it says, and then it'll be okay. How's that working out? Is it ever satisfied? Is it ever satisfied when you go and you try to do everything that part of your mind tells you to do? Does it ever say, now you can be happy? Now you can rest? No, it just goes on to the next thing. And the fundamental nature, the reason why God is coming in and intervening in our lives and trying to pull us away from certain pursuits and toward others is that these ones are a dead end. There is no, okay, you did enough, because it's captivity. This is just continually it's just a drain on everything that your life is supposed to be. So it's important enough that there's this entire story in the Bible, one of the more famous stories, about getting us out from this situation. All right? So as we look to free ourselves from that, let's get a little song in here. Let's kind of shake up our minds and spirits and everything, and start to think about, okay, do I have something that I maybe want to get free from? And would I be open to learn a little more that would teach me how to get that freedom? So here we go.
It came upon a midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their hearts of gold. Peace on the earth, goodwill to men, from heaven's all gracious King. The world in solemn stillness lay to hear the angels sing. with all the times of sin and strife. The world has suffered too long beneath the angel's voice has grown 2,000 years of wrong, and men are born, but men can't hear the love song that they bring. So stop this noise, you men of war, to hear the angels sing. Hear them sing midnight clear, midnight clear, midnight clear, midnight, midnight. Peace on the earth, goodwill to men, from heaven's all gracious King. The world in solemn stillness lay, to hear the angels sing. Let them sing good night, clear, midnight clear, midnight clear, midnight, midnight.
Thanks, everybody. That sounded great. That was an original song, too. No, that was a great rendition of that. And I love the way that it starts. Came upon a midnight clear. This is talking about the advent of God, like the birth of Jesus, the greatest thing. It's at midnight. It's dark. That's always the theme. It's like, it's dark around, but something good, something is brightening that up. It's the same story you see as, all right, you're in this captivity, but so it's bad, but we're going to come and we're going to get you out of there. Also, I just want to say, everybody that runs this show, besides me, is such pros, because I realized after, that last slide I did, I was supposed to do in the second section, so everybody was like, what are you doing back? None of you even noticed, because they just play, Curtis is doing this again. So, I just want to give them credit where credit's due. Okay, so we talked about the state of bondage, where you're in there, it's a divine impossibility to satisfy the human ego. You can stay there if you want, but it's not fair. It's not fair. There's this thing called moving the goalposts. Have you guys ever heard of that? I think it's a logical fallacy. I think it's classified as there's all these different logical fallacies. Like if you're in a debate and your opponent says, I'm going to see if I can illustrate this in real time. Your opponent says, well, you can't prove that there are 6 stairs down here. And if you say, well, look, you can count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you say, yeah, but you can't prove that they were here this morning. That's moving the goalposts. It's like in soccer. I always think of soccer goalposts. I guess it could be. So somebody kicks the ball and it's rolling. It's going to make a goal, and you move the goalpost so that it misses. That's what the human ego will do to you. It will say, you just need to do this, or watch out for this bad thing's going to happen. And then when you do that thing, or this thing doesn't happen, it'll say, well, actually this thing. Well, actually this thing. It just keeps you doing what? Working for it. So who is, instead of just calling it, instead of just calling it ego, I want to start calling it Pharaoh. Because if you have all these subcategories of negative things in your mind as Egypt, if you're stuck in a state of Egypt, who rules Egypt is Pharaoh. There's a picture of Pharaoh. Oh, yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. So Pharaoh is the thing that rules Egypt. And I can't say, here's who Pharaoh is in your mind, because Pharaoh is, I think, a little different in every person's mind, but it is, I'll say we'll personify him. He is the thing that rules the things that keep you trapped. You can't always tell what exactly he's composed of, but as you start to try to disobey him, it starts to come out. So if you go to the next slide, here's a definition of Pharaoh. Now, Pharaoh is a multifaceted character in different stories of the Bible. There's actually good pharaohs and bad pharaohs. But for this story, Pharaoh, this is defined in New Church theology as falsity that opposes the church's truth. If you want to do a deep dive on that, I put a handy reference number there. You can take a picture of that. That's like one of those passages. It's got 1 million cross references. You can go. Falsity that opposes the church's truths. You may feel like, oh, that's a little bit of a letdown. I thought you were going to say something cool, and that's just a strange terminology-laden phrase that doesn't seem too emotionally relevant to me. But let's just think for a second. What is the church's truth? What the church, and you can talk about the church inside yourself just as much as you can talk about an organization that tries to teach. The truth is what comes from God about the reality of how life is. So let's start on the right-hand side here. I called it the leaves of the tree, because in the book of Revelation it says the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. And what that means is these truths from God are for the healing of the nations, which is all of us. And these are just quotes from the Bible. The hairs of your head are numbered. Right? What opposes that truth? What's the belief that opposes that truth? So I put under Pharaoh, again, this is just one example of Pharaoh, the implicit idea that you're on your own. That you are fighting this battle on some level by yourself. Is that not the central idea that opposes how you would feel if you really believed that all the hairs on your head, God knows, God is present, God exists, God knows you and is tuned in enough to you that he knows how many hairs you have on your head? It's easier for him to do that with me than with all of you or with some of you. But that's a high level of attention. Those are two very different views of life. And Pharaoh, let's say that's one of your Pharaoh beliefs, is that when you're walking around and you just implicitly feel like, I don't see God around anywhere, I don't see providence in events, I've got these challenges that are in front of me, I'm alone. That's Pharaoh. That belief that opposes that falsity, because it's not actually true that you're on your own. You're actually more surrounded by love and good power in the form of God in heaven than you could ever imagine, but there's this falsity. You're on your own. That's Pharaoh. Pharaoh might say, if you go down to the second line, that there's no meaning in events. That this thing is just it depends on how you think about things. This is just like a inanimate, materialistic universe that's just gone off the rails. Or it could be that, there's some kind of higher power out there, but my life is just chaos. That belief, you walk around with that in you, and you just feel it when you look at things, that's keeping you trapped. And what's it opposing? There's that quote from Jeremiah, "For I know the plans I have made for you." And it goes on, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Fundamentally, the truth of the church, this is something that comes out of Jesus' mouth. This is something you find all throughout the Old Testament. This is something you find in any people who have had any kind of encounter with God. Always is, there's a plan. Things have meaning. There's actually, things are very well looked after, and this is going to turn out well for you. That's the church of the truth. That's the truth of the church. There also is a church that I once knew called the Church of Truth. That is what's being opposed. Think about if you walked around all day feeling secure in the belief that this is all unfolding according to plan. This is all going according to plan. I have that's really there. Like that, I really think that's how it is. I'm involved with the work I do with the Swedenborg Foundation, and we're making a series of videos that involves people's near-death experience stories. So these are people who have had some kind of, often like a tragic accident. They leave their body. You've probably all heard this now. You see the white light, you go toward it, and they'll meet God, or what they'll call the light, loving light, and in there, they will see their life. They'll see the scenes from their life, and they'll not only see that, but they'll see exactly why everything is the way it is and where everything's going, and nobody comes back from that like, the plan is like a 5 out of 10. It's not, everyone comes back, oh, everything's so carefully looked after. So that's the reality. You could walk around in the belief of that. The problem is there's this Pharaoh on the other side, which is this appearance that there's no meaning, that there's chaos. Pharaoh could be that there is no God. You could have the belief that just like, it just doesn't seem plausible. I don't think it's really out there. The counterpart to that is that your joy may be full, like the life is about that joy. You may not see yourself in this list, but start to look at what is the thing that anchors all the negativity in me. What if it had a voice, what would it say? What's Pharaoh issuing from his, I don't know if Pharaoh had a throne or you call it something different in ancient Egypt, but what's he doing up there? And contrast that with this idea of seek and you will find. God, that's from the Jesus quote, if ask and it will be given to you. That no, actually there's a meaning and a good path in life. That's the church's truths. Is that exciting? Is that a mindset? Does that create the promised land if you believe all those things? Sure does. Why can't you believe them? Because Pharaoh's blocking you. Pharaoh's got you under his control, and he's very interested in keeping you in the settling for the miseries of life instead of breaking free. But we don't want to be there. And even God doesn't want us to be there. So he's saying, hey, it's time to go. So let's, after another song, let's see if we can't get called up out of Egypt and into something better.
Freedom spirit, unfettered and free. No constrictions in this reality. My spirit is free. Spirit is free. All limitations only live in my mind. Nothing can hold me back in space and in time. My spirit is flowing, fixed in the truth, forever knowing what I should do. My spirit is free. Chaotic confusions in everything. I see the illusions the world can bring. My spirit is holy and guiding me, and I'm steady, anchored in peace. My spirit is free. Freedom of spirit, unfettered and free, with no constrictions in this reality. I see the illusions the world can bring, chaotic confusions to everything, but my spirit is free. My spirit is free.
All right. Yeah, let's get to that state. Let's get to where we can sing that song, Our Spirit is Free. So, there's actually a story. Again, you see yourself, you can see yourself in these stories. The stories will actually teach you about yourself. There's a moment where we get called to be free. And this is a dramatic call. Remember, God has just heard the Israelites are groaning. They want to be free. And so God says, all right, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to get this to happen. Here's how I want to do it. This is from Exodus 3. The famous story of the burning bush. We'll do a little background, and we introduce ourselves to a character named Moses. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. Feel that like intensity of that, the love. The fire is like love. This is the love of God. That's like, I'm going to get you out of there. You guys ever see that, the meme where there's a little cat trapped behind a window and a guy's like, I'm going to get you out of there. Same kind of love coming from God. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Because again, it's not physical fire, it's spiritual fire. Then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. I'm just realizing now, so he's seen fire, but something in him says, this is different. And maybe you have a moment or a series of moments where you see everything that's out there in life, you see things recur, but something about some kind of teaching or some kind of picture of a higher power strikes you as this is, or of love strikes you as this is different. I need to turn aside and see what this is. So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. Then he said, do not draw near this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. So I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from that land to a good and large land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. I promise, the more you look into the stories, the more detail you can start to see, because Moses has to take off his sandals. He's saying, look, this fire is different here. Take off your sandals. So a sandal is like, that's the most external thing. It's the stuff that's in contact with the ground. It's like your sort of cynical, casual, materialistic attitudes. It's like when you approach this, whatever's going to lead you out of Egypt, don't treat this like everything else. Whatever it is for you that feels like this is bringing me toward this acknowledgement of the divine or this different kind of life that's moving me out of Egypt, you take off your shoes. You treat it as something sacred, because then you'll listen to it. Then you'll listen to it because you got to follow the instructions. And then, how does God intro himself? He says, even though Moses doesn't know God, hasn't even talked to God, God says, hey, by the way, I'm the God of your ancestors. These people that you and I are intertwined. You don't even know it, but I haven't just not been present in this. I'm very wrapped up in this story, okay? And not only that, but I've seen what you're going through, and I'm going to get you out of here. Even though it seems like I'm this strange thing you never seen before, this fire in the bush, I've been with you generations and generations. So that's the call. And that's a symbol of God makes that same call in everybody's life. I don't know exactly how it probably plays out differently. It's probably a snowflake for everyone, meaning like no two snowflakes are alike. So the call for each of us can play out over a series of events. Who knows? But I bet if you scan your life, you can maybe see little bits of where's your call. That's God saying, look, we can get out of here. There is a way to break out. So maybe you find something in your life, something that starts to work, like a modality or maybe coming to church, maybe the new attitude, maybe you read a book or something that starts to pull you out of the land of Egypt. And then, great, you walk right out the door and everything's fine, right? In the story, as soon as Pharaoh can tell that the Israelites are trying to get out of there, it says God hardens his heart. But again, according to these appearances, as soon as we're trying to get out, the heart gets hard. All the effort and armies of Pharaoh are there to try to keep you in. I have a quote here. This is from Kevin Roth, who's a therapist. He said, and this is actually a paraphrase. I heard him say this, so this is colloquially phrased, but I like this phrasing. When you try to leave a system, you're going to get its best stuff. So this can be in the context of, let's say there's some kind of, sort of dysfunctional extended family dynamics or something, and you're trying to act a different way, you might hear some biting criticism. You're going to get its best stuff. Or if there's a culture at work that's, against working hard or something, and you're like, no, I'm going to do that, you're going to get people coming at you with the best stuff. People who are vested in the system. If you're trying to think of all those movies of, I want to say, is Aaron Brockovich, is that about that? It was Julia Roberts was trying to uncover some pollution scandal. When you start to unmask things, they're going to come at you. So it is with Pharaoh. This is like every time the children of Israel want to leave, Pharaoh's heart's hardened. He makes the work harder. So you can have in yourself that actually, when you start to try to walk the good path, it can feel like more of a struggle at times. That's because I really think, Pharaoh, that negative stuff in your mind, likes being in charge of you and likes the order as it is. Look, we can say go over here, he goes over there. We can say get anxious, he's anxious over here. And we kind of feed off that. That's what we want to have. That's what we want to have. And we're not going to give that up. The Egyptians, they were getting a lot of good bricks made. Why would we want to give that up? What's in it for us? So Pharaoh hardened his heart. You're going to have pushback as you start to try to break through these things. It goes back and forth. There are these battles, culminates in finally, after all these plagues and, okay, let go, don't let go, the Passover, there's a story of the crossing of the Red Sea, which is this final escape. So we're truncating that story, but you can go back and read it, and you can probably see yourself in all the steps along the way. So this is 14, 21 to 22. Just a little bit of this story. Then Moses, this is after the Egyptians came after them. They get walled up against the Red Sea. It seems like I'm never going to escape this thing. It's just now that I tried to, it's going to come at me and destroy me because they see the armies of the Egyptians coming toward them, and they're trapped. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. So the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. You think about how the hopelessness of, here comes Pharaoh's army, and Pharaoh's army has got all these chariots, it's got all this military technology. We just escaped. We have no infrastructure, we have no training. How are we going to, we probably don't even really have weapons. How would we ever fight this army? Not only that, you got the ocean, you got the sea right there. It's this impenetrable barrier. We're trapped. The situation is hopeless. Can it feel like that sometimes in your life when you're trying to go up against the negative things that you're trying to put, like when you're trying to change, when you're trying to have things go well? All your fears and all your foibles and failings or whatever it is for you, it's coming down, and we got the sea behind us. How are we ever going to get out of that? And then there's this miracle of the wind coming and moving, not just like pushing some trees to the side, moving the sea, moving the whole sea so that you can walk out. And if you look at the symbolism of the sea, water in the Bible is either about truth or a falsity, depending on the context. So if you think of that sea as like all the false beliefs that you have that keep you trapped in there. You got Pharaoh and his army of negativity coming toward, and you're stuck up against all these untrue things in your mind. God can come in and push that aside. So where all these misconceptions and whatever yours are blocking the way, suddenly there's a path where there wasn't a path before. And if you don't believe that can happen in your life, it can, because this is in the Word. This is here for a reason. That's how the journey works. It's not the end of the journey. After the children of Israel go across that sea, they end up in the wilderness. And in the wilderness, there's still challenges. They several times, even while they're there, they say to Moses, somewhat annoyingly, hey, why didn't you just leave us to die in Egypt, to be slaves in Egypt? Because we're going to die out here because we don't have enough food, we don't have enough water. And that symbolizes that, yes, you continue to face challenges throughout your life. But each time in the wilderness, God sends manna, God sends quail, sends water from the rock. The stuff you need is going to be there and you can trust that it's going to be there as you go through your life, because whose idea was it to get you out of Egypt in the first place? Moses didn't call the bush, did he? The bush called him. Because God loves you more than you love yourself. And he's going to figure out a way. If you're not happy, he's not satisfied with that. He wants to get you to the promised land. So you go through the wilderness, and this whole time, God is leading you to true freedom. Because sometimes the Israelites would say, yeah, get us back to where life was easy. when we were in Egypt, where we didn't have to be fighting these battles, but the land God's leading you into is different. So here's a comparison of those two. If we're equating Pharaoh with roughly the ego is not ever going to give you what you think it's going to give you. For example, if you look at the top left there, the hedonic treadmill. Has anyone ever heard of that? So this is something that they've studied, and if, for example, part of your Pharaoh is this idea that material stuff is going to give me the satisfaction that I'm looking for. Probably even when I said material stuff is going to, the cynical part of you is like, yeah, right, you're just saying that because this is church, but really if I had thing X, thing Y, then I would be happy. No, you wouldn't. It's actually science. You would be happy for a minute, but they've studied this. The hedonic treadmill, if you think about a treadmill, is the idea that you're trying to, I'm sure I've talked about this at New Church Live before. If I haven't, what was I waiting for? There's the thing. If I can get this car or a vacation house or a whatever thing, if I get that, then I will be happier. Make this much money or get this honor or something. So what happens, they find, is you have a baseline and you return to it. It might take a little while. If you get the thing you're desiring, you might be up for a little bit, but within, we're talking months, you return to your baseline. You're happy the same as you were before, because now that shiny thing is normal. It becomes normal, and it doesn't make you feel like it. So then you see the next thing, and you just keep going. You're like walking on this treadmill, if I just get that, but everything becomes normal. Everything becomes normal. So that's the kind of freedom, which is not really freedom, ego is offering you. The inner critic is a part of this ego impossibility. As we said before, that thing will never pat you on the back, is not trying to help you. The ego wants to lead you into a life that doesn't satisfy in whatever way. With some people it's fear, with some people it's meaningless, with some people meaninglessness, with some people it's anger. Whatever it is, it's not satisfying. Whereas the land that the divine is trying to lead us into, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. That's a life that's filled with happiness from love, which is not cheesy, sounds cheesy, but when you actually experience it, that's great. The peace of providence, the belief, there's a plan. Yeah, there is a plan. There's a divine plan. Actually, so much so you can just go and read in the Word where your life is going according to that plan. And then the joy of being useful. The joy of, you're working, but you're working because you love to do something for someone. You get joy from the impact. It's not like when you're making the bricks back in Egypt trying to satisfy your inner critic or the ego that's never going to be satisfied, or to placate or soothe your own anxieties or something. This you're going to be working the fields, but they're your fields. This is actually going to bring you the kind of lasting happiness that God wants to bring us. And all of that is to lead us again to the promised land. Because that's the divine intent, is for us to be living in the place where you feel that peace and that happiness that God wanted when He created the universe and created each one of us. So that's what it's all for. Pharaoh doesn't want you to go, but in the end, when you get to the promised land state of mind, it's even better for the Pharaoh part of you as well, because then you can kind of get that thing straightened out. So this is where we're heading. So what I hope you can do from this is break free from Pharaoh. Just notice what is the stuff that's keeping me there, what kind of rules that, and I feel like it's a really helpful device to say, all right, well, there's Pharaoh. Pharaoh wants to rule that I don't work for Pharaoh. So you start to just label it, you start to understand it, you start to see it as the story tells you from the Word. I think there's a power in that. I think that helps you move past some of these things. You picture, I'm going across the Red Sea right now. I'm in the wilderness right now. I think God can work through that. I think that those can light up sort of concepts in your mind. So try to meditate this week on what is keeping me trapped, what rules that sort of trapped state, And do I think that God can break me out of there through the kinds of miracles that he works on? How do I take steps or be open to listening to what the burning bush is telling me to do? Okay? All right. So one of the ways that you can do that, something that's really helpful, is to try to form a working picture of God that, to whatever extent you can, you believe is actually there and actually active in your life. So a good way to do that is through the prayer, the Lord's Prayer, because it not only acknowledges the existence of God when you say it, but it also gives you the attitude, the relationship to the divine that works. That it puts your mind into divine order according to the divine plan, because this gives you the relationship that we're intended to have with God. Okay? It's a pretty good package, the prayer. It puts you in, for a second you're seeing life clearly. Even if you're just reciting these words, the words indicate that. So let's say it together, or you can just listen to it being said and try to maybe put in there a wish to be led through this and through everything you know of God to what is free and good and happy. Okay? Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. It's good. That's good. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully you experience some good freedom this week in your mind and your soul, and you can always be there to help other people along their journey as well. Thanks.
It's a song I wrote called Now or Never. It's kind of about how this isn't a rehearsal. This is the real thing. You wanna howl and you wanna shout. You wanna chase all the darkness out. You wanna dance and you wanna sing. You want a chance at everything. And it's now or never for you. There's nothing that nobody else can do. It's now or never for you. Something in the air, seeing green lights everywhere. The time is now, the moment's here. Decide which side, the choice is clear. It's now or never for you. There ain't nothing that nobody else can do. It's now or never for you. It's now or is this goodbye or just hello? Do we remain or do we part? Is this the end or just the start? It's now or never for you, and it's nothing that nobody else can do. It's now or never for you. Yeah, it's now or never for you. There ain't nothing that nobody else can do. It's now or never for you. It's now or never for you. Now or never. Now or never for you.
Have a great week.